In two programmes during the 1970s, we drew attention to the living conditions of workers on British-owned tea estates in Sri Lanka, formerly Ceylon, and India. The programmes provoked worldwide concern. Tonight, 10 years later, we return to the subject of Britain's national drink. This time we look at tea estates in a third country, Bangladesh. Next month, the Duke of Edinburgh is due to visit an estate there during an official visit. He may think it worth inquiring about conditions in the tea industry. £5 million worth of Bangladesh tea was drunk in Britain last year. It's blended with other teas and used in tea bags. Keith Skillicorn is in charge of a hospital in the heart of Bangladesh's tea country. 3/4 of the patients come from tea estates owned by British or local companies. All suffer from a terrible disease.
How can you tell that this man has leprosy?
Well, of course, you can see the enlarged earlobes, nodules there, and you can see the infiltration over the whole of his body.
This former tea worker's hands are ulcerated. He's lost part of his fingers. Leprosy has destroyed the tips of his toes. There are other sufferers. This one has lost the use of a foot.
Does this man, this leprosy patient, come from a tea estate?
He's from Chandpur Tea Estate.
Which is a British-owned tea estate?
Oh, yes, it's British-owned, yes, yes.
And do you get a lot from the British-owned tea estates in its
Yes, area? Yes, quite a lot of our patients from British-owned tea estates.
From the tea estates of Bangladesh tonight, evidence of malnutrition and of diseases like dysentery, anemia, night blindness and leprosy. A harsh contrast with the world of those who drink tea in the comfort of British homes. On British companies' estates in Bangladesh, there's a constant threat of infection, sickness, stunted growth and death for over 50,000 children there. After our second disclosure of conditions in 1975 in Sri Lanka, a team of British MPs visited estates there. Their report had one important conclusion. Poor local conditions did not justify British companies in providing less than decent minimum living standards for workers and their families. British companies, the MPs said, should give a lead in raising standards. The call was echoed by a church-backed British pressure group, the World Development Movement. In 1979, the movement began investigations into the tea estates of Bangladesh and the living conditions of workers there. The workers are by origin immigrants. 100 years ago, British companies brought their ancestors from other parts of India to work in the Sylhet district. They're Hindus and today form an isolated minority in Muslim Bangladesh. Father Tim, a missionary in Bangladesh for 31 years, explains their plight.
The tea workers are an alien people. Their language is different. They still remain an alien cultural element in the country.
How dependent are the workers on the tea companies?
I should say they're absolutely dependent on the tea companies. Just as in the old days, in British times, they never had the possibility of returning home. Now they don't have the possibility even of moving out into the Bengali community and becoming integrated and getting jobs and so forth.
Some people have suggested that the true characterization of the relationship between the workers and the tea companies is that of a feudal relationship.
Oh, it's a completely feudal relationship, yes. They're like serfs, and the tea company masters are like the lords in the feudal relationship.
The development movement campaign centred on estates run by the British group James Finlay. They hold a leading position in the Bangladesh tea trade. Finlay's 9 estates produce a quarter of all tea grown in the country. They're based in Glasgow. Campaigner Roger Jeffrey has studied the company's approach to business.
I think their philosophy can be best characterised as being the attempt to maximise profits over the fairly short term. That's to say, by comparison with some other tea firms, they take a much shorter time frame to look at their decisions so that they've got much less long-term interest in the industry.
Another British company, Lorry Plantation, is part of a complex financial empire run from London. It produces a further 20% of Bangladesh's tea from 11 estates. These companies, with 3 other British concerns, dominate the tea industry. Smaller and less profitable estates are locally owned. Bangladesh was of special interest to the campaigners because of a British government aid scheme. £22 million had been given to modernise the tea industry there. £4 million of that was earmarked for the welfare of workers and their families. The campaigners wanted to find out what conditions were like in Bangladesh. In 1979, Roger Jeffrey asked the chairman of Finlay, Sir Colin Campbell, for details of conditions on Finlay estates.
We got virtually nothing in the way of an answer. That's to say, Sir Colin refused to answer any of the questions in any detail whatsoever. And it was basically a stonewalling technique.
Sir Colin said it would be too difficult to collect the information, and most Finlay shareholders would not think it necessary. The movement had a further setback. In 1981, its chairman, John Tanner, tried to go to Bangladesh. His visa was cancelled by the Bangladesh government on the grounds that the campaigners had agitated among tea workers. Last month, uninvited, World in Action went to Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries in the world, to try to answer the questions raised by the campaign. The town of Sri Mangal is in the heart of the Sylhet tea district. There are 29 British-owned estates there. Without permission, we visited 10 of those which surround the town. On these estates, we interviewed 70 families to see what they earned, what they ate, and how they lived. There are 140,000 workers and dependents on the British tea estates. There's usually no alternative employment. Some homes are of brick with 2 rooms. Most are of mud, thatch and bamboo. It's common for homes to have no windows and no proper ventilation. Inside there's no electricity and no running water, frequently no kitchen and no lavatory. This hut is home for a woman and her son. There are often no sewers and no proper paths. Such conditions are common in the villages of Bangladesh. Here they're provided by British companies for their employees. Children we saw were confirmed by doctors to whom we showed this film as having hookworm or infectious skin diseases that breed in conditions of poverty. On a lorry-owned estate, Alinagar, a baby with a skin complaint, diagnosed as on the borderline of malnutrition. 2 other children in the family were assessed as definitely malnourished. Only James Finlay and Laurie Plantation have the full information on housing and health. We asked for statistics, they were refused. For Finlay's Fulchera estate, statistics have been gathered independently. With Finlay's permission, Dr. Sadan Ghosh has been running a trade union-backed health scheme for the 440 workers and their families. After a year of running the scheme, Dr. Ghosh believes they're in a bad way.
What would you say is the general state of health of the people on the Pulchera tea estate?
It is below average.
Below average for Bangladesh?
Yeah. The main reason is the lack of good nutritious diets. They cannot afford good nutritious diets. Most of the people are suffering from malnutrition and subnutrition.
In 1980, also with Finlay's permission, Father Tim did a survey of Fulchera and 3 other estates. He found that wages, now standing at 23p a day, were inadequate.
What in fact can you buy in Bangladesh for 8 taka 50 a day, which is 23 pence in England?
You can buy enough rice for your family for one day, and that's about all. And a little something to go with it, but no fish, no meat. They don't earn enough to be able to provide meat in their diet, meat or fish even.
For most of the year, wages average £1.40 for a 6-day week. The company also provides a subsidised ration of wheat and certain medical facilities worth perhaps 90p a week. Also small plots of land for food growing. Though not the poorest in Bangladesh, tea workers are near the bottom of even that country's pay scale. Dr. Ghosh's medical surveys on Fulchera found a high incidence of diseases linked to malnutrition. We wanted more details about this.
19 inches.
Dr. Ghosh agreed to measure and weigh 50 children from the estate. Though not a scientifically balanced sample, they were selected as being reasonably representative. We noted measurements and took photographs.
12 kg.
Right.
18.5.
18.5.
13.5.
13.5.
To spread our inquiries more widely, we ourselves carried out a smaller measuring exercise on an estate which Finlay manage, Borora. We used a special tape to measure the children's upper arm. Its use by laymen is approved by doctors.
12.1. 12.8.
Back in England, we gave our information to Dr. Tim Lusty. He's an expert on tropical medicine. He's also medical advisor to a leading British relief agency. We asked first about the arm measurements of the 10 children from Borora.
we found a girl of 1 year whose mid-arm measurement was 12.2 centimetres. What would her position be?
Well, she again is definitely malnourished, possibly severely malnourished.
3 years of age, 12 centimetres.
Well, she sounds as though she could well be severely malnourished at that level. One would be quite worried about her, and certainly you'd want to weigh her and check.
Dr. Lusty said that 6 out of the 10 children we measured were malnourished or severely malnourished. We then discussed with Dr. Lusty the more detailed evidence from Fulchera. Here, weight, height and age were available for 50 children.
That's a boy of 6 years of age who weighed 12 kilograms.
Well, he on the weight for height scale is 75% of normal, which means that he is malnourished and wasted. And in fact, if you look at him, you can see that his arms are thin. He also looks small, but one would need to know the height to be sure of that.
Well, that child is 6 years of age, and at 6, his height is 102 centimetres.
Well, at 6 years, you'd expect him to be 114 centimetres, so he's about 1.5 years behind in growth.
Let's look at the next child.
Yes. This child, if you look at his picture, he looks more malnourished, in fact, than the others. You can see his arms look a little thinner and his face is drawn with the eyes slightly sunken. He is 79%, which, once again, shows him as a malnourished boy. A malnourished child will get many more attacks of infectious diseases than a non-malnourished child. So you have this vicious circle of infection leading to malnutrition, and malnutrition leading to more infection, and so the child spirals gradually downhill.
Until it may eventually die?
Die, yes, and many die.
Let's have a look at the next.
The little girl. From the picture, it's a little bit difficult to tell, excepting that her arms, again, look fairly thin.
She is aged 5 years, and she weighed 11.5 kilograms.
Well, she's clearly very much underweight, and using the criteria, the weight for height criteria, we find that she is 67% of what a normal child should weigh for this height. And this means that she falls in the criteria of severely malnourished and need of urgent care. The danger is that any form of infection or disease which we would normally shrug off could very easily kill her.
Malnourished girls like this, he added, faced an added threat in later life. Stunted growth meant a smaller pelvis and a risk of death in childbirth. 36% of those weighed and measured were malnourished. How did this compare with similar countries?
Well, provided these statistics are representative of the community as a whole and not specially selected, this sort of figure would be what you would expect in quite a bad refugee-type situation or in a bad pocket of malnutrition in a developing country.
Our surveys seemed to confirm the opinion of doctors we spoke to in Bangladesh. This was that the tea workers and their families are more malnourished than the general population. We now look at other factors that may affect health on tea estates. The Bangladesh government has passed laws for the estates. One regulation says,
"The employer shall provide wholesome drinking water for all workers."
Finlay told us they seek to comply with local law. The water supply does not always seem sufficient. Finlay's Deanston estate. Workers here said there were not enough working wells nearby to provide the pure water they needed. This company well is of an approved type, but unusable. It has plants and ferns inside it. In another unusable well on the same estate, a small tree has taken root. On the Deanston estate, there are working wells providing pure water. This is one. Its surroundings, however, are neither clean nor hygienic. Elsewhere, too, enough pure water is a problem. At the Laurie estate, we asked a tea worker's family about their source of water.
But where do they get their water from?
He said he had an improvised private well. His family all drank from it.
Does he think that that water is safe to use?
The tea worker told us he thought the water might not be healthy. He was right. We sampled the water from the unprotected private well and took it to a laboratory in the capital, Dhaka. The results showed
This water is unfit for human consumption.
tests showed it was polluted with feces. At Finlay's Barora estate, a more optimistic assessment of the water used.
Where do they get their water from? From that well that we've just seen. Does he think that the water is safe to use?
This water is very good water, clean water.
The tea worker's confidence is misplaced. The water in his improvised well is severely polluted and unfit for human consumption. The level of feces is 10 times that of the other well and dangerously high. On the estates we visited, workers told us they used improvised wells because there were not enough company-provided wells nearby. Companies do provide some safe water. This well on the Lorry estate does so. Such wells can be installed for about £27. There's also a government regulation about sanitation. It says,
Employers shall provide latrines for people housed on the estate.
There's some doubt whether it's observed. On the Lorry estate, we asked the same tea worker's family about their sanitation.
Do they have latrines here?
The family, he said, had no latrines but would like one. It would be better for their health. On the Finlay estate of Barora, it was a similar story.
Do they actually have latrines in this house?
There is no latrine.
Do they have latrines here?
Neither Finlay nor Lorry would tell us the number of wells or latrines they provide. Once again, the only hard independent evidence comes from Finlay's Fulchera estate. A 1980 survey showed that 78% of homes had no lavatories. In rural Bangladesh, such homes are common. Few appreciate the value of good sanitation. Our inquiries suggest British companies are not providing most workers' homes with lavatories or the health education to go with them. Finlay have said that where they do provide lavatories, they're often not used. On Fulchera, levels of disease are high. It has only 1,500 residents, yet since January this year, hundreds of cases of diarrhea, dysentery and various fevers have been reported. Finlay have agreed that on their estates dysentery and worms are common. Anemia and night blindness are also present. Proper nutrition and living conditions would radically reduce these diseases.
Could all these diseases like dysentery and anemia, could they all be prevented for the tea estate population?
Yes, so this can be prevented.
But these diseases aren't the only ones. Leprosy has taken root on the estates, both British and local. Only now are survey teams mapping out the extent of its incidence. The fear is it's getting worse. This tragic leprosy case is from a locally owned estate.
How old is this boy?
This boy's 14.
What's happened to him?
Well, he didn't get early enough treatment. The sensory nerves affected, causing loss of sensation.
But no sensation?
No sensation. And he was walking and he developed this ulcer, which became infected. He really needs to have this removed, this toe. It's useless. But unfortunately, he will not give us permission for that.
Why doesn't he want to have his toe?
Well, who wants to part with a toe?
Could what has happened to this boy have been prevented?
Completely, yes. Completely prevented. There's no need for this boy to have developed this deformity.
Leprosy is recognised to be a disease of overcrowding and poverty.
I think it's true to say that leprosy seems to thrive in areas where the socioeconomic conditions are below normal, in overcrowded conditions. Yeah, poor people, overcrowded conditions. I think if we could somehow improve the socioeconomic conditions, we'd go a long way to eradicate leprosy.
Why do you think that you're finding cases coming from those British tea estates?
Well, of course, as I say, the bacilli are spread mainly through nasal droplets, we believe. So where you've got people living together, packed into these tiny little huts, coughing and sneezing over each other, this, I believe, is the main mode of transmission.
On Finlay's Rashidpur estate, more than 1% of residents are confirmed or suspected cases. On Lorry's Ammo estate, 1.5%.
That shows an incidence of about over 1% amongst the population.
Sure, that is correct.
That is considerably more, isn't it, than the incidence of leprosy amongst the general population of Bangladesh?
Yes, that is true. It is more. It is more.
And do you think that is just because of the conditions in which those people live?
Mainly, I think that is it, yeah.
No figures exist for the total number of leprosy cases on tea estates, but on the 2 British estates surveyed, the incidence of leprosy may be at least 4 times that for Bangladesh as a whole. Only Finlay has the full facts about all diseases on their estates. Most of their senior personnel here are from Bangladesh. We asked Dr. T. Ali, their chief medical officer, to make available the company's figures. He said it'd need higher authority. Mr. M. Zaman, Finlay's superintendent, also referred the matter higher. Mr. Zaman's boss, who's British, said the matter was sensitive and confidential. British tea companies in Bangladesh in fact have a welfare record widely believed superior to that of local firms. Finlays provide a hospital and some medical care. They told us leprosy and the other diseases mentioned are probably endemic in Bangladesh. Finlay believed there were only very isolated instances on their estates. Lorry Plantation, owners of the Alinagar estate, have refused to discuss with us conditions here or the presence of leprosy on other estates they own. Finlay, who manage Fulchera, Borora and Deanston, have declined to participate in this programme. They say their workers' health is better than that of the general population. In 1980, Chairman Sir Colin Campbell said,
"The working environment is being progressively improved. Our standards compare favourably with those of the tea industry as a whole."
He said, "We are merchant adventurers seeking a fortune for our stockholders." Sir Colin emphasised the company did care for its workers. He was morally comfortable about the situation on Finlay estates. In Bangladesh, many dispute that the companies are concerned about their workers. Dr. Ghosh of the Tea Workers Medical Project.
Do you think the tea companies care about their workers and the health of their health and the health of their families?
They do not care. They do not care for the health of the workers. They only want the work, nothing else.
Earlier, we mentioned the British government scheme to modernise the Bangladesh tea industry. In 1979, it was decided that £4 million of British aid should go to improve water, health and sanitation. This money could change things. Father Tim.
Well, that would make a huge difference. There's no program whatsoever of preventive medicine, and this is certainly one of the biggest needs, to relate sanitation, hygiene to public health. But nothing is being done in this area.
And that is something that the British amount of the £4 million could help to achieve.
There's immense room for improvement there.
It's now 4 years since the money for improvement was allocated. But in Bangladesh, practically all there is to show is the tea project's headquarters. Aid administrators here said progress had been much slower than expected. At the British High Commission in Dhaka, we learned that the welfare part of the scheme had bogged down in bureaucracy. The government tea board and the companies also had been wrangling over who should pay for what. Of the project's £4 million, only £20,000 has been spent. Perhaps royal interest will speed matters. Next month, the Queen goes to Bangladesh on a state visit. The Duke of Edinburgh will visit the Sylhet tea country, though so far no British tea estates are on his itinerary. Last week, the British government department responsible for the project admitted to us officially that living and health conditions on the Bangladesh estates are worse than those in India and Sri Lanka. The companies themselves could act immediately. Since 1981, the price of tea has risen by at least 50%. All British-owned estates have been reporting higher profits. Finlay's main Bangladesh company made more than £1.5 million last year. Lorry Plantations Bangladesh companies made £1 million. On the evidence we brought from the estates, an opinion from Dr. Lusty.
What therefore is your reaction to the fact that all of these children are in fact the children of people employed by British companies, living on properties that British companies own and control?
Well, I would hope very much that if the companies are not aware of the situation, that having been made aware of them, they would hurry up and do something about it.
And would you consider that these type of conditions and the state of health of these children is acceptable for us people who in fact are employed, whose parents are employed by a British company, who live on British companies' property?
Well, I personally wouldn't like to be a member of that company and sitting on this sort of a problem.
In Sri Lanka in 1973, we were greatly helped by Dr. Samasundaram Rajasundram, a champion of the tea workers. During the communal troubles there this year, he was first imprisoned without trial, and then in July, in a prison riot, he was killed.